Hey guys, welcome to this GuestFlow webinar from Chaos to Clarity, Simplifying Property Management. And we are today going to be taking you through some really key things that we think is going to improve your businesses. My name's Graham Lindley. I'm going to be your host today. I'm one of the co-founders here at GuestFlow, and I'm joined by Rashpal Sidhu, my co-founder.
Hi, everybody.
And we are two of three co-founders. So GuestFlow's been going a couple of years now, but I've probably got 7 years experience in property management, short-term rentals specifically. And I've grown a managing agency to just over 200 units, which has had its challenges along the way, which we've managed to overcome. Rash and I have been working together for a good number of years. And I think when I realized there was a gap in the market, I couldn't find the tools that I needed to really delegate properly and hand over. I wanted to build something. So that's when I spoke to Rash, who you've got, was it 30 years experience in IT, is it?
30 years now in IT. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Three
Wow.
decades. Life sentence and a bit. Yeah.
Amazing. Love it. So, agenda today, we're going to be just talking about some of the challenges that come with growing a property management business, some of the things around managing tasks with your team, how we hold information, store information, reference that information, and being able to kind of keep it all up to date. And then team collaboration, right? And so that's the main kind of titles, if you like, that we're going to be going through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think every business has challenges, but especially in short-term rentals, the challenges are greater. I mean, it's quite famous for being what we call a noisy business models. Lots of moving parts, things fast-paced environment, and we really want to strive for efficiency, especially in the market that we've got. It's a more challenging market conditions. We've got headwinds ahead of us in the industry, and I think especially in the age of AI, making sure that we are running very efficient businesses so that we can hand over more easily to team members, so that we can delegate and so that we can step away if we need to, so that we can grow and scale and focus more on working on the business instead of in the business. All of these things are important to business owners, but also the you guys operators of businesses, right? Which a lot of the time in the early days, there is the business owner. I rolled my sleeves up. I've done it. I've been at the coal face, as it were. And then as we've kind of grown and we've implemented more of a team, that comes with its own challenges. And actually, in some respects, it's easier when you're doing everything because you're not likely to miss things, right? But of course, you are then your own bottleneck. So, and ultimately, you want to own a business, and that really is something that's going to work for you, even if you're sailing across the Atlantic. So, let's get into it. We're going to talk about the complexity of property management, Rash, right? So,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, definitely. It's particularly as you grow, as you mentioned, as your business grows, it becomes larger, there's larger challenges, there's more complexity. And really it's about making sure that you have the right tools to help you to manage that complexity. And the type of things that we're talking about is, as you inevitably take on more rentals, you're going to have more guests, which means you're going to have more things to do, which means you're going to have more communications. And as you've already alluded to, short stay is a very noisy business. So in that regard, it's about managing the noise, right? So tasks, things that you need to do, when you need to do them, who needs to do them, delegating those tasks to different team members, partners, etc. That gets more and more challenging as your business grows. Managing all of the information about your guests and rentals all in, one place so that you have one version of that truth, where are things kept? How are things done at the properties that you manage? When do bins need to be put out? All of these kind of things, all the information that you need to keep. How do you access the properties? All that information needs to be consistent. It needs to be up to date, and it needs to be shareable, not only with your guests but within your team as well. And then again back to the team point, collaborating. How
Mm.
do you share information between team members? How do you share information with your partners, you know, your housekeepers, your handymen, your plumbers, your electricians? You know, it's keeping that collaboration around solving problems, you know, making sure that you've got a way of doing that. And, you know, we all know what the impact of not being able to do these things properly are. It just leads to a poor guest experience ultimately. You know, poor guest experience leads to poor reviews. If you get poor reviews, it means to lower sales, which leads to you then dropping your prices, which leads to lower revenue, and you're just on this downward spiral. You know,
Mm.
this is the impact of not getting this right. So it's quite important. It's quite
Yeah,
important. Yeah.
absolutely. And so dream outcome, what are we ideally striving for as business owners? How would you state that, Rash?
It's staying on top of everything that needs to be done,
Yeah,
knowing exactly what has been done, what needs to be done, what needs to be done next, who needs to do it.
yeah,
So staying on top of that is having all of your information in one place so that everybody knows where it is. It's always kept up to date. It's easy to share,
yeah,
right? And it's being able to communicate effectively
yeah,
within your team, right? And
yeah,
keeping all of that tied together so that when a guest picks up the phone and they need something from you, you know exactly where they are in their journey. You know exactly what you need to share with them when you need to share it with them. You know exactly what everybody else has spoken to them about. You know, it's all there in one place. That's you know, that's the dream outcome. So it's having, you know, at a glance, knowing
yeah,
exactly what needs to be done, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So
So stick around, guys. We are going to show you how to make this happen, and it's not complicated. It shouldn't have to be because I think complexity just leads to inaction. It becomes too overwhelming. It becomes this big thing that you keep putting off, and ultimately, yeah, as Rashford said, that's going to impact your ability to make money. Ultimately, right? So, yeah, we will show you the solutions. So. Let's move on a slide. This is how a lot of businesses are currently managing tasks. Of course, in the short-term rental industry, we've got channel managers, and most businesses are using channel managers, and they, to a greater or lesser degree, do have some level of task management in them. But we're talking not just the obvious tasks like raising a job for the cleaner because there's a checkout happening. It's all of the other things in your business that need to happen, right? So that might be contacting the guest that you've just spoken to tomorrow, and who's going to do it? You're not on. If there's a rota, you need to make sure this thing's happened, or potentially you've seen an error in one of the listings, so now you've got a job to be done that's against one of the listings, right? So we
yeah,
find that most businesses end up using task managers, right, outside of their
correct.
channel manager. So yeah, obviously Trello, Asana, ClickUp, there's loads of them out there. These are kind of the most common ones, I think, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think when you start out, it's, you know, when you've only got one or two rentals, a piece of paper, jotting it down, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how you
Yeah.
start out. You might migrate to, like, you know, a spreadsheet. You might keep these things in a spreadsheet, or you might even use, you know, like the notes app on your phone, right? It's
Mhm.
quite straightforward and simple, because you've only got one or two properties to think about, and you're probably only doing one or two check-ins a week, when you're starting small. But when you think about breaking down all of the tasks that you need to do just to get one guest from booking all the way through to checked out, leaving you a lovely review, right? You know, the way that we kind of break that down is you've got your pre-arrival tasks, you have your tasks that are just up to arrival, just after arrival, during their stay, up to departure, after departure, and then they're gone, right?
Yeah.
And managing tasks and being able to categorize them so that you know exactly what needs to be done during that journey
Yeah.
is when you start to then have to think about systems, right? Systems like Trello, Asana, ClickUp, they're really powerful. You know, they have a free tier as well, a
Yeah.
lot of the time. And you can have different boards, right? You could have a board for your reservations. You could have a board for your cleaners. You could have a board or a workspace, and some of these apps isn't known for, you know, your like you were talking about there, Graham, listings. You know,
Yeah.
get all the tasks that you need to go through to list a new property. You know, do a visit on site, have a look at what might want to do to change it, to get it ready for essay, photography, ready for listing, copy, actually then getting onto the OTAs, you know, a bunch of tasks for like booking.com, a bunch of tasks for Airbnb, a bunch of tasks for Expedia. All of these things need to be done. And as you start to scale and you take on more and more properties, again, you have to manage that in a system as well.
Yeah.
So you've got a place. These apps are fantastic for helping you to manage that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, the mistake I've seen some businesses make is they'll have it, obviously when it's just you, the notes on the side of your desk is fine. But as soon as there's other people involved and knowing who's responsible for what, this is where tools start becoming more important. And I have seen businesses try and use the wrong type of tool for this. For example, Slack or WhatsApp, you know, essentially communication tools talking about things that need to be done, but they get lost in the conversation. The threads move on. We don't have a track of who's doing it. One of the analogies I like to use when speaking to especially new team members is, you know, these are like the virtual equivalent of how it would have been back in the day if we were all working in an office together. There's no such thing as the internet, right? And ultimately, the communication tools are there to replace talking to each other. But then there's the jobs that actually need to be done. They're sitting in the in tray. You know, is it done? Who's responsible for it? What's the updates to that job? And yeah, ultimately then passing it on to someone else, right? If needed. So yeah, this is why you want to be managing tasks properly and relying on something that it will allow you to just again at a glance know what's done, what's in progress or blocked, and what needs to be done, what's new, you know.
And it's about managing it, you know, pushing that thing, that reservation or that booking through its journey, isn't it? Right. Everything's done pre-arrival. We've got payment, we've got deposit, we've had the verification done, you know. Everything that we need from the guests we've received and we're happy, fantastic, right? And then pushing them onto the next stage, which is okay, we can now release access instructions, and we can release the codes, tell them how to get the keys, all of that kind of stuff. And at the end, we can now tell the cleaner that they've checked out and they can turn up. So there's tasks in relation to that journey, right? They've got to be linked to the journey so you know exactly what's happening when as well. And then there's the assigning, right? There's the who needs to do it. Is it one of us? Is it a partner? Is it the guest? Sometimes the guests have tasks that they need to do, you know, checkout tasks and things like that. So all of those things can be managed.
Yeah. I mean, we like to talk about being proactive, right? And the more proactive you are, especially in a noisy business model, the less reactive you end up being. You know, good business is about flow and creating that flow, right? And so, yeah, proper management of tasks, what needs to be done means you're not going to need to then react to unhappy guests who have arrived and still haven't got access instructions, and actually you can't give them because they still haven't paid or done the check-in and the things that you need them to do. And of course, if you're just reacting to them being on the doorstep at 2 a.m. after their flights were delayed, you're going to end up with very, very unhappy guests. So yeah,
absolutely.
And just being able to, like I say, keep proactive.
Yeah, and that's why you'll have, you know, a set of standard tasks, for all of your bookings. You know, here's what we do every time, right? Sometimes there's a different depending on the OTA that you have. So if you think about Airbnb, well, you know, you don't have to collect payment. If you're not using payments by booking.com, you do have to collect payment. So depending on the channel, the OTA channel that you receive the booking for, you might have a different set of tasks, but ultimately they're standard. It's always the same things that you need to do. And that gives you consistency, right? Once you know what your standard tasks are, you can deliver that guest experience consistently, right? So yeah, it's really important to think about your process, what it is you need to do each and every time to always deliver that fantastic guest experience.
Yeah, well put. So next we've got rental information. It's about essentially what's often referred to as a knowledge base. You know, where are your team? Where are you going for that rental information? And again, in the early days, if you've only got a couple of rentals and it's just you, it's easy. It's all in your head. You've
All
just,
up in it, yeah.
yeah, you've remembered it, right?
Yeah.
But again, you are then the bottleneck. And I think again, in the early days, it's quite easy, especially if you're in one location, one type of property, to have one set of rules for everything, you know, same deposit amount, you know, same handyman. But as you grow and as things get more complicated, there's a lot more variables. And so keeping track of like, well, who is the handyman for this property? You know, where is the where is the thermostat? Where is the stop tap? You know, all of the things you need so that you can respond to inquiries and issues
Yep.
effectively and efficiently. Like you need that information on hand, and we find people doing all sorts of things, right? Just good old fashioned spreadsheets, yeah.
Yeah.
Notion, it's a little bit more complicated, takes a bit more to set up, but it can be quite effective. Google Drive, and having lots of different
Documents,
links,
yeah.
all your documents in different places, and yeah, a lot of people use Dropbox for that as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. There's so with your property information, there's lots of reasons to have property information to hand. As you talked about guest inquiries, right? Can you tell me where the nearest parking is? What's the access codes, right? Before I book, I'd like to see some additional photography. Can you show me what the garden looks like, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about having a barbecue, whatever. So just your normal kind of questions, things like that. Requests, yeah, guest requests. I'd like to have a cot bed. Do you have one? If you don't know if you do, or whether it's available and where it's kept, you can't easily respond to those guest inquiries. All the way through to, you know, the access codes. You know, this is sensitive information, and we find that a lot of early stage startup SA businesses will keep all of that information in a spreadsheet for everybody to see, right? So there's no security around that or anything like that. So, you know, as you evolve, as you grow, you start to think about organizing this information, making it available so that it's all there for you, so that you can respond to guests, but also not just information that you want to share with guests, but your team, like your housekeepers, right? You know, you know, how many beds is there? How much linen am I bringing? How much, you know, how many bedrooms are there? How long is this clean going to take me? You know, all of this information to hand, the address of the property, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, you build up more and more and more information about your rentals as you go along, even to the point where you're storing the current live version of the copy for Booking.com, the current live version of the copy for Airbnb, versions of the copy. You know, if you're thinking about your marketing and sales side of things, you might want to try different things, and you might all want to plan, you know, for that big event that's coming to town. Yeah, updating your copy to say, you know, very close to that amazing new music festival that's coming to town next month, right? So all of that information, you start to want to bring it together so that it's in one place.
Yeah, and if you don't bring it together, right, and so it's fragmented, just leads to massive inefficiencies, right? You've got errors happening. You don't know what's up to date. You've got some information over here, other information over there. And it's messy, right?
Absolutely. You know, telling a guest that there isn't a cot bed available when there is a cot bed available might lead to you losing that booking.
Yeah.
As simple as, right? Or telling a guest that there is on-street parking or there's off-street parking, you can park on the drive, and then they turn up and they can't, and they've got to pay. Bad first impression, right? So yeah, absolutely. It's a back down to that guest experience, you know, and also efficiency for your team as well. So
it goes back to what you were saying earlier. You know, you want a single source of truth. You want to know you and your team are referencing something that's up to date, it's accurate, and
easy to hand as well, right? You don't want to have to hunt around for this information. It's got to be easy to find as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So the next key thing in managing and scaling an efficient business is, of course, team collaboration, right?
Yeah.
How are you communicating with your team? You know, messaging each other with questions, sharing information with each other, sharing notes from phone calls and guests, potentially the current status of each reservation, you know, what jobs have
Mhm.
been done, what someone else
Mhm.
needs to do. Where are you talking about that, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, a lot of businesses are on WhatsApp with various WhatsApp groups. I
Yep.
do I do tend to prefer Slack over WhatsApp for that internal communication. Apart from anything, you've got threads. So, you know, if there's lots of different conversations happening and you've got kind of good habits with the team where they are communicating in threads, then it just means that actually it's much easier to see everything that's going on or open up a thread if it is relevant. If not, you can scroll past it. If you've just got a couple of WhatsApp groups going on, there's all sorts happening. And before you can look away, go to a meeting, before you know you've got 100 unread messages, which, you
Yeah.
know, amongst that might be something really, really important. So, and then of
Mhm.
course, you know, a lot of businesses are still stuck on email as well, you know, emailing each
Yep.
other and having various threads going on and absolute
Mhm.
chaos.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, number one, there's no doubt that these technologies have helped with collaboration, and again, when you're starting out, it might just be, you and one other, right? Or you and the housekeepers. And managing something, communication like that over WhatsApp or is pretty straightforward. As soon as you start to scale and you need to talk about lots of different subjects, topics, things that need to be done, and you're communicating to team members and partners on a channel like WhatsApp or a channel like Slack, immediately it becomes very congested. Now, Slack, you can do threads, right? So you can have channels even in Slack. You can have channels and threads in Slack. So it helps to keep things organized somewhat, but you don't have to stick to the rules. How many times when you're using a tool like Slack has somebody put something in the wrong channel,
Mm,
right? It happens all the time.
yeah,
People don't use them properly either, right? I'm a big advocate of using Slack threads.
yeah.
I think it works really well, but we know there's that limitation with Slack threads. You can have a thread that's one deep. You can't have another thread inside a thread, right? So it means that you hit these limitations, and eventually, what ends up happening is you just have this massive stream of stuff, this comms going on, and it's all muddled together, right? So we start off in the morning talking about one guest and an issue that they're having, and then before you know it, there's a conversation in that same place about another guest, and then there's a conversation about a new client that you've taken on, and we need to head down there and meet them, and then you've got a conversation about something completely else. The accountant's just contacted us and needs this information, and before you know it, it's just a mess, right?
Mm,
There's no context. You can't tie it back. And if you're using lots of tools like Slack and WhatsApp and email, it's hard to stitch it all together. So I might have spoken to a guest about something on email because they emailed me, but then later on they sent me a WhatsApp, and now I've got conversations going on in different places, right?
mm,
And that's what's happening with your team as well. So your team are doing the same, right? They're talking to each other on different channels. So it starts to make that collaboration difficult. Who's spoken to the guest, who's taking on that action, who's doing this thing, and it's all disjointed and different channels. And that's the difficulty with new technology, right? It's brilliant because it makes communication really easy, but it makes it hard because you can communicate so much as well. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys. So yeah, let's bring it all together now and talk about this dream solution, which is what we've been working on here at GuestFlow. So we want a single platform where you can manage all of your tasks, have all of your rental information, do all of the team collab, and a lot more from one dashboard, one platform for your whole team. Because of course, the problem is when you're using Trello for your task management, Slack, and maybe a bit of WhatsApp
mm,
and some email for your communication, you've got all of those fragmented conversations. So then when a guest is
yeah,
on the phone, you're not going to start searching all of these other systems for all of the updates, right? And so you end up
yeah,
not providing such a good
and
service.
that and that's the next challenge, isn't it? You've now got control over your tasks. You've now got control over your rental information. You've got some form of team collaboration tooling in place. But now the difficulty is it's disjointed,
Mm.
right? You're having to copy information from one system to another, to another, to another, to try and keep everything together. So that now the next challenge is, well, how do we tie it all back together?
Yeah.
And that's the problem that GuestFlow solves.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to say, we're not replacing the channel manager here. The channel managers, we'll let those guys look after the connections to Airbnb and booking.com, sync them up. You've got the multi-calendar there. The bookings come in, but it's then over to you guys, over to the team to make sure everything's
Mhm.
running very smoothly. And I think, ultimately channel managers are very good at syncing your bookings, syncing your
Mm.
rates, some basic automation, but then it starts to get a little bit gnarly to,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
beyond there.
Their goal is get you bookings.
Yeah,
That's what the goal of the channel manager is. Then your job is to deliver the experience,
absolutely.
right? And that's where GuestFlow comes in. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's give you guys a sneak peek of GuestFlow. This is the main dashboard, and of course everything comes in as reservation cards. We've got the multi-calendar elsewhere on the channel manager. Once those bookings are in, you need to know what you're looking at. You need the go-to information on each one. And we've got these smart lists. These are configurable, user customizable. You can set them up however you want. So for example, I can click this now and just see the 3 that are checking in today. I can also select multiple and see who's checking out today as well, and see the status of those bookings, right?
Mm. And that's important, right? Because you need to know what's urgent. You know, arrivals for today are important. You might need to make sure that everything's ready so you can, quickly focus in on today's check-ins, and that's really important. Knowing exactly where each of your reservations are within that journey,
Mm.
and that's what the smart lists give you the ability to do. But not only that, you can focus in on specific tasks. Yeah,
Mm.
um, you know, chasing deposits. I have 10 of
Yeah.
those that I need to do, right? I need 10 tasks for me to complete there. So,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of GuestFlow. It's completely configurable as well.
Completely configurable. So some people want to chase deposits, day before arrival. Others are getting a bit more organized and just making sure it's done for people arriving a week away, right? So whatever those
Mhm.
rules are in your business, that's how you set these smart lists up. So then as soon as you've selected a booking you want to dig into a little bit more, we'll look at this one. We've got the team panel that comes across. Okay. So one of the first things up here is information. We talked about having your rental information to hand, but it's not just rental information, which is under here. Wi-Fi instructions, bin collection day, deposit amount, minimum age, all of those things. And of course, being able to store custom information as well. Maybe you've got some unique information you want to share with the team about a particular rental, no problem. But it's all the other information as well. Tell me about the contact details of who's staying, for example, right? So
Mhm.
being able to have all of the go-to information on hand is essential. And one of the things that we
That's
do
right.
with GuestFlow is we've got what we call a guest app. It's not something you download or the guest downloads. It's just a link that's unique to them and their reservation. But then they get the information that's relevant to them. Obviously, it's not going to be everything that you guys are storing in the back end, but they need certain relevant information. And if there's jobs for them to do, you want them in sync with your team.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. The guest app is the way that you share information with your guests, and one source of truth. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same address that you have, you share with the guest. It's the same access codes that you use for your properties, you share those with your guests. It's the same parking information. It's all one source. It's always up to date, accurate, and it's always exactly what you share with your guests, as well as other team members as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, of course, it's the jobs that need to be done, and these can be customized. You can have them set on a particular OTA. You want certain tasks, particular properties, or just generic across your business. What is it you need to
Mhm.
have done? What's the status of
Mhm.
those things? And of course, being able to add extra as well. It needs to be quick and easy, and so that then anyone who is then looking at this reservation, they can see how many jobs are outstanding, what needs to be done, right? And then, potentially when they're doing that job, they can see any relevant information they might need to help them do it.
Yeah, you're right. The information you need sometimes to complete a task is there. It's available to you, right? So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then we talked about team collab, right? So again, we want to know what conversations have happened and what notes there are with this guest. And it might be that they booked 6 months ago and asked if they could bring a dog, right? So, for example, I might want to tell my team what I've said. I might want to ask for
Yeah,
help and have a conversation in here, right? So, um, we could then go in and have a back and forth conversation, and it's just like a Slack thread, and then maybe a few weeks later, someone's dealing with a reservation, and they can see the history. So that ability to deliver a 5-star service is
yeah,
there.
yeah, absolutely. Capturing notes from a guest conversation in here, linking documents, all of that information is brought together in this area that's used for conversations, for collaboration
Yeah,
internally within your organization between you and your team members, so that when anybody wants to come and find out what the current status is, they can click on that reservation. Number one, they can see all of the tasks. Number two, they can see exactly what's being said and done with the guest as well. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. We for example, we like to capture the reason for their stay, and it just means, again, it just shows you're listening. If it's their son's birthday, if you're then giving a courtesy call, you've captured the name of the son and how old he is. It means they just feel like they're getting the personal touch, even if you're operating from a
Absolutely.
team of 10 people and it's a different team that are checking people into the team that are doing capturing reviews and doing the courtesy calls. So
Yeah,
again, having
yeah.
that single source of truth where everyone's collaborating together in one place
Mm,
instead of scattergun approach and things being
yeah.
all over the place.
And this is where it's different from, your tools like Slack and WhatsApp, because in Slack, you have lost that. If this is captured months ago, that's gone. It's
Mm,
way up in the thread. You'd have to rely on somebody putting the name or the dates of that particular reservation into Slack for you to be able to search it. Whereas here, what we're doing is we're having the conversation actually within the reservation itself. So it's always there, it's always relevant, it's always contextualized.
absolutely.
And that's the key difference here.
Yeah. And I think, another tool that we've seen people use or try and use for this is spreadsheets somehow. They've got a list of all their bookings. They can maybe track and toggle the status of those bookings, and they've got a box or
Mm.
a cell for notes. But it's so easily corrupted, so easily things can be deleted, or just, again, it
Yeah.
gets a bit gnarly as soon as there's quite a few notes on there or something's been ongoing back and forth. It's just not the place for that kind of thing to happen. Great. So, there's so much more to GuestFlow as well. And I think, if it's something that is of interest, reach out, of course. And the other thing to do is just go to Capterra, search GuestFlow, and you'll find reviews from, our users. What do our users think of GuestFlow? So check that out. And yeah. Final thoughts, Rash.
Yeah, I guess it's back to that, what we discussed at the beginning. Software is a massive, massive asset to your business. And, as you grow, you kind of start small and you bring in different tools that help you manage different aspects of your business.
Mm.
And then the next challenge becomes too many tools. And when you hit that challenge, it's then there, well, what next? And what we're really looking for is that dream solution, which is where you've got everything happening in one place so that you can have full visibility. Yeah.
Mm.
You know exactly what's happening in your business, because ultimately it's about delivering 5-star experience for your guests. Yeah. You deliver a 5-star experience for your guest because you're in control, you're proactive, you have the information, it's current, it's available, it's shareable. You know, you can collaborate to deliver that experience. That leads to fantastic happy guests. That leads to fantastic 5-star reviews on all of your channels, you know, booking.com, Airbnb, etc., which leads to more bookings and more demand for your properties, and ultimately you being able to charge more and increase your revenue. And that's really what GuestFlow is about. It's about helping you increase and increase your revenue, build your business, grow your business, and scale your business.
Yeah.
So.
And look, whether you're using GuestFlow or not, I think these principles that we've discussed, it's useful stuff, right? But
yeah,
it's
100%.
very important to keep it simple, and it's that delicate balance between, right, it's got to be good enough and nuanced enough to cope with a growing business and in a a noisy business model, whilst being simple to manage, simple to set up, simple to train people on, right?
Yep.
You shouldn't need days and days of training and loads of manuals and SOPs on how to keep things up to date. It should be so intuitive, right? So that's important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. So look, it's been fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone who's attended. And yeah, if you want to explore more about property management best practices, or reach out, just reach out to us. Any questions, whether that's about GuestFlow or not, we are here to help you. Okay, and check our website out. We've got some blog posts on there. We're going to keep adding blogs as well around some of this content that that we've shared with you today. And yeah, look, we're also happy to do consultations with you. We are tech guys, right? We're happy to review your tech stack, and if we don't think GuestFlow is a good fit, we're going to tell you that, right? We don't want to be forcing this on anyone whatsoever. So it's about consultations, and we're happy to give those for free. So again, if you go to our website, you can reach out on there. There's a link to book a demo, or a link to send us an email. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone very much for your time. And yeah, again, any feedback, questions, or how you think we could improve future webinars, we want to start doing this more regular, please let us know. That'd be great.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers.